you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join Doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Joanne Sotelo on a very important topic about getting unstuck and moving forward. I can't wait to dive into this one, Joanne. And I am wondering, as women in medicine and all the intelligence, all the hard work, why do we still get stuck?
Thank you, Erin. Let me start by saying that having that emotion of feeling stuck is normal. I don't always like the word normal, so maybe it's appropriate. It can be part of the process. So I'm kind of starting backwards because it's something that we need to have awareness of. And then what we can do is reframe it. And then maybe instead of calling it stuck, we can start saying, it feels like I'm slowing down. There might be an obstacle in the way, so that we don't tell our brain we're stuck. There's nothing to do. Let's stop. So I'm starting there. And there are so many reasons why we have that emotion, because it's really an emotion. Because if we are talking to a friend and we're helping them think through it, we would probably help them figure out that they are taking steps, that they are moving forward, that they are making progress. And they might be just because they're measuring themselves with a standard that's too high or thinking about the last outcome. The example that comes to mind is if you want to run a marathon and then you sign up, you do all the things, but you haven't been running for a long time. And then every time that you go out for a run, you just have to jog, walk. And it might make you feel, I'm stuck. I am never going to be able to finish this marathon. There's no way I can run so many miles in a row. And then sometimes it takes someone else to say, hey, you are getting out, you're putting your tennis shoes on and you're going on for walks and jogs. That's amazing. But the emotion of feeling stuck is there. The other thing I want you all to think of is, when is this emotion coming up? Is it about your relationships? Is it about your career? Is it about your health? And what's really making you feel that way? What are the thoughts that come up for you when you have this emotion? Because the truth is that probably in most areas of our lives, we would want to do better, or we have a belief that we're not doing enough. It's that other side of the coin. So that's why that feeling stuck is so appropriate. And it can show up in almost every area of our lives. It is part of the process.
Wow, Joanne, that is so powerful. And the equating appropriate and feeling stuck doesn't seem like they would go together, but you talked about maybe you don't want to use normal. I was thinking, oh, maybe it's typical she's going to use, but I love that term appropriate. Wow, you just nailed it about all the expectations. And of course, you're feeling stuck. And what are your expectations? So powerful. I wonder, what are some common traps that women in medicine do get stuck in?
We are going to sound a little repetitive on purpose. A lot of these topics that we're bringing up in this podcast overlap, and that's part of the intention, to bring more awareness and more understanding of the struggles that we have that can be appropriate. And one of the things that comes to mind is lack of clarity. Often we feel stuck because we don't really know in detail what is it that we want. We just have this vague idea. For example, I want to be healthier. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean for you? What do you want to make it mean? I keep on saying the same word on purpose, because we'll find that understanding what you want and the steps along the way will help you feel unstuck, will help you feel like you're making that progress. Another thing that a lot of us women in medicine fall into is that there are so many internal and external expectations and pressure. And then in here we hit things that we talked about before in terms of our comparison of how we believe things are supposed to be, or our perfectionism, overthinking, worrying, imposter syndrome, because we have this high standard of how things are supposed to be and how we're programmed as doctors in the work, and it has to be perfect. So of course we're going to feel stuck because we have frequently unrealistic expectations and we for sure are moving forward, but it's so far away that we feel like we're just stuck. And then maybe more into the mindset, that fear of change, fear of failure, the self-doubt, and a lot of these things can mix up and they put us at risk for that sense of overwhelm, getting off balance, and burnout. So those are other reasons why it is important to recognize where are we going and where are we feeling stuck, even when we're not.
Love that. Clarity, which you talk about so commonly, and also clear about what we want, not just knowing what we don't want, which is a much more difficult question to answer. I love that you pointed that out. And I'm wondering, Joanne, so you talked about all these traps we can fall into. So what can we do about it?
Yes, and how we've been doing lately, that we have frameworks and acronyms for you because it's catchy and it's easier to remember. I have a framework, I call it SHIFT, which is important when we're thinking about feeling stuck. A lot of times, just that word shift can be so helpful. Shift your framework, shift the plan, shift the steps. But I do have meaning for each one of the letters. So S is step back and see the big picture. I talk a lot about this a lot, how sometimes we need to pause, zoom out, and really gain perspective. Because when we get tunnel vision, it is helpful to get things done faster, but then we hit an obstacle, we hit a limitation, and then we have that emotion of stuck, and then we don't move forward. So again, take the time to pause and zoom out. So that's that S, the step back. The H, which I love, honor your emotions. As I said, a lot of these feelings are appropriate. They're part of the process. We need to look at them and honor. I get cheesy and then I say, sometimes we need to talk to the emotion. Is there a message that comes with how we're feeling? Is there something that we need to look at that we haven't? And acknowledge that it's appropriate to feel fear, to feel frustration, to have uncertainty. But that doesn't mean that we're stuck, and it doesn't mean that we cannot move forward. The third letter, I, identify one small action. Always. We've talked about the moving forward momentum. Ask yourself, what is one step, either big or small, that you can take today to help you feel unstuck? My brain is kind of on the worrying side, I have to admit, and it's easy for me to get to that sense of overwhelm that paralyzes me. So that's kind of a different way that stuck shows up for me. It's that sense of overwhelm that slows me down. And I've worked on it enough that it's not like I don't feel it. I'm just aware of it faster. And then I use the emotion as a way, kind of like as a red flag for myself, to pause and ask myself, what's really going on? What's really making me feel that way? And I often use just this step as a way to move forward. I say, what is one thing that I can do right now to help me feel a little bit better? And it's sometimes related to that big goal. Sometimes it's something else. It's just to get me out of that emotion of overwhelm and out of that emotion of being stuck. So it can be very powerful. Don't minimize it. Don't let your doctor brain say, tiny steps, that's not for me. I want big steps. No, that's important for all of us, okay? The fourth letter, F, find support. And Erin and I are here to tell you over and over again the importance of community and the importance of recognizing that we all need help and that it's totally okay to raise our hands and ask for support. This is going to be our message over and over, so important, and we raise our hands as well. And then the last letter, it's T. Trust the process. Trust the process. Growth is non-linear. I think that as doctors, we're programmed to just go forward, check off the boxes. It is somewhat linear. It feels like that. But that's not how life overall is. And to understand that growth, we have waves that we need to ride, and that it's the movement forward that matters. Sometimes big, sometimes small. Frequently, we need a little bit more support than we're allowing ourselves to accept, and to step away from that sense of perfectionism that so frequently gets in our way. So that's your shift framework to get unstuck.
Joanne, you have packed so much information into this short period of time. And I know I'm going to be going back and listening to this multiple times and reviewing my notes. And I just want to point out some of the key points in case you're driving while listening to this and don't have the time to pause or slow things down. You shared that feeling stuck can be appropriate, even for a woman physician. Let that sink in. It can be appropriate. Number 2 is that there are many traps for women in medicine. External pressures, our programming through medicine, comparison, perfectionism, imposter syndrome. And when we are aware of those traps, maybe labeling them for what they are and going like, you're not going to keep me stuck, and figuring out with Joanne's framework, the shift framework, how can you then say, yep, this is a little barrier. I know how to get around it. And some of the key tools to do that are stepping back to get a better picture and gain perspective. Love that, because when you're so close or tunnel vision, you're not going to see that. That's the S, step back. H, honor your emotions. Talk to your emotions. Recognize those emotions may be completely appropriate for the circumstance. Identifying one small action to gain that momentum. And Joanne, in an earlier episode, talked all about momentum. And that was a great episode as well, if you haven't yet listened to it. The F is for finding support in the right community, not any community. If your community is dragging you down, it's time to find a person, a community that can lift you up and help carry you forward and get you unstuck. And then trusting the process, with growth not being linear. Joanne, wow. These are gonna impact my upcoming week talking to you on this subject. I'm so glad that we've had this conversation. And I would bet you have at least one more tidbit for our listener about this topic of getting unstuck. What would that be?
I love that while listening to you reflect back on what I've said, something else comes up, and I always honor those things that my intuition gives me. And what came up was, which we've said here before, but for some reason it's coming up very strongly for me right now, is you're not alone. Often when we feel stuck, it's attached with a lot of negative emotion, a lot of shame and guilt, and then we end up suffering in silence. And part of our mission with this podcast is to let you know that there's help, there's community, you're not alone. This is part of why we're bringing more of these tools. And please reach out whichever way we can help. This is very important. And we're so happy and honored that you're here listening and trusting us in this process.
I so love that, Joanne. And we have resources available. You can connect with us if you go to our website, createmeaninginmedicine.com. Click on the website and see what we have in store for you. And with that, we'd also love to see you as our next episode is coming right up.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.